A cowboy expected a simple bride. The wild woman who arrived changed his life forever. Life followed a simple pattern: wake before sunrise, tend to the animals, fix what was broken, eat a plain meal, and sleep early. It was a steady life, honest and predictable. Yet as the years passed, something felt missing. He was not a man who spoke much about feelings. In his world, emotions were shown through action, not words. But at night, when the wind moved through the grass and the house felt too quiet, loneliness settled in. He noticed it most during small moments, when there was no one to share a meal with, no voice to greet him at the door, no warmth besides the fire. Neighbors were miles away and visits were rare. Time moved slowly and silence grew heavy. His family had often reminded him that life was meant to be shared. During short visits or letters, they would mention marriage, children, and the comfort of companionship. At first, he brushed it off. He believed he was built for solitude, but deep down, he wondered if that belief was just fear wearing the mask of strength. He was getting older, and the idea of spending the rest of his life alone began to trouble him more than he liked to admit. The cowboy was practical in everything he did. He did not believe in grand love stories or dramatic promises. To him, marriage was a partnership, a shared responsibility. He wanted someone calm and simple, someone who understood hard work and quiet days. He imagined a woman who would accept ranch life without complaint, who would care for the home while he cared for the land. He was not looking for excitement. He was looking for peace. After much thought, he decided to take a straightforward approach. Through trusted contacts, he arranged to meet a woman who was said to be interested in a stable life away from the noise of the world. The idea felt strange at first, almost uncomfortable. Choosing a life partner without truly knowing them felt risky, but he told himself that many people before him had done the same. He believed that respect and routine could grow into something meaningful over time. As the date of her arrival grew closer, he prepared his home carefully. He cleaned the house more than usual, fixed a loose step on the porch, and made sure the guest room was ready. These small acts were his way of showing effort, though he would never say that aloud. He pictured how life might change once she arrived. He imagined quiet conversations over dinner, shared chores, and evenings spent side by side, each lost in thought but not alone. He set clear expectations in his mind. He wanted order, mutual respect, and understanding. He believed that if both followed their roles, life would move smoothly. There was comfort in that belief. It helped calm his nerves when doubt crept in. He reminded himself that he was offering stability, safety, and honesty. In return, he expected cooperation and calm. Still, beneath that calm surface, questions stirred. What if they did not understand each other? What if she regretted coming to such a remote place? He pushed those thoughts aside, telling himself that worry solved nothing. He had faced storms, droughts, and loss before. This was just another challenge, he thought, one that could be managed with patience and effort. On the morning of her arrival, he woke earlier than usual. The sky was pale and the air was cool. He went through his chores with extra care, checking fences and feeding the animals as if the land itself needed reassurance. When everything was done, he washed up and put on his cleanest clothes. He looked at his reflection briefly, unsure of what he saw. A man shaped by years of labor, steady and reserved, standing on the edge of change. As the hours passed, he found himself listening for sounds he normally ignored. Every distant noise made him pause. When a vehicle finally appeared on the dusty road, his heart beat faster than he expected. He stood near the porch, hands resting at his sides, unsure of what expression to wear. This was the moment he had planned for, yet it felt unreal. He expected a quiet arrival, a polite greeting and careful words. He believed the first meeting would confirm his expectations, that she would be shy, respectful, and ready to fit into the life he had built. In his mind, the future was already shaped, measured, and controlled. He did not know that this moment would mark the beginning of a journey far different from anything he had imagined. What he did not realize was that life rarely follows plans made only with logic. The land had taught him many lessons, but it had not taught him how deeply another person could challenge his understanding of himself. As he waited, he held tightly to his vision of a simple future, unaware that simplicity would soon give way to growth, conflict, and change that would reshape his heart forever. This was the start of a story not about finding what he wanted, but about discovering what he truly needed. The vehicle came to a slow stop near the ranch house, sending a small cloud of dust into the air. The cowboy stood still, watching as the dust settled. This was the moment he had prepared for in his own quiet way. He expected calmness, maybe even nervous silence. What he did not expect was the energy that arrived with her. When the door opened, the woman stepped out with steady confidence. She did not hesitate or look around in fear. Instead, she took a deep breath, lifted her chin, and scanned the wide land as if measuring it. Her clothes were simple but worn from real use, not chosen just for appearance. Her posture showed strength, not shyness. She carried a small bag in one hand and the weight of her past in her eyes, though the cowboy could not yet understand that. She walked toward him without waiting to be invited. Her steps were firm and her gaze met his directly. She offered a brief smile, not soft or timid, but honest. The cowboy felt a strange pause inside himself. This was not the quiet, gentle woman he had imagined during long evenings of thought. This woman looked like someone who had lived, struggled, and survived on her own terms. Their first exchange of words felt awkward. He greeted her politely, keeping his voice calm. She responded warmly but without hesitation, asking questions about the land, the animals, and the distance to town. Her voice carried confidence, and her curiosity felt natural, not forced. Each question made him slightly uneasy, though he could not explain why. He was used to being the one who spoke less, but now he felt unexpectedly silent. As he showed her inside the house, she noticed details quickly. She commented on the strength of the wooden table, the smell of fresh air through the windows, and the simple comfort of the place. She did not criticize, but she did not hide her thoughts either. The cowboy felt both exposed and unsettled. This house had been his private space for years, shaped only by his needs. Now someone else saw it clearly. During their first meal together, the difference between expectation and reality became even clearer. He ate quietly as he always did. She, however, spoke about her journey, the road she had traveled, and the work she had done to survive. She did not speak with complaint, but with honesty. Her words carried strength and humor, and sometimes sharp truth. The cowboy listened, unsure how to respond. He had expected small talk and polite agreement, not stories filled with independence. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, tension hung lightly between them. He showed her the guest room and explained how things worked around the ranch. His words were careful, measured, and firm. She listened respectfully but asked questions when something was unclear. She did not nod simply to please him. This made him uncomfortable, though part of him admired her courage. The next morning brought new challenges. She woke early, before he had a chance to explain the routine. Instead of waiting, she stepped outside and observed the animals, asking thoughtful questions about their care. When he finally joined her, he found her already engaged with the life he thought he would have to introduce slowly. Her willingness surprised him, but her independence unsettled him even more. As the days passed, small conflicts appeared. She did things her own way, sometimes differently from how he would have done them. She rearranged small things in the kitchen for convenience. She spoke openly when something did not make sense to her. None of it was meant to offend, but to the cowboy, it felt like a challenge to the order he valued so deeply. He had expected cooperation without discussion. Instead, he found himself explaining, listening, and sometimes questioning his own habits. This was unfamiliar ground. He felt frustration rise, mixed with confusion. He reminded himself that adjustment took time. Still, he wondered if he had made a mistake. The woman sensed his discomfort. She was not unaware of his silence or stiff posture. One evening, she asked him directly if she was causing trouble. Her tone was calm, not defensive. The question caught him off guard. He struggled to answer honestly without sounding harsh. After a long pause, he admitted that he had expected things to be simpler. She listened carefully, then spoke with equal honesty. She explained that she had never been a simple person, not because she wanted to be difficult, but because life had demanded strength from her. She said she did not believe in losing herself to fit into someone else's expectations. She was willing to work hard and build a life, but only if she could be herself. Her words stayed with him long after the conversation ended. That night, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He realized that he had planned for a role, not a person. He had imagined a life that stayed unchanged, only quieter. This woman, however, brought questions, movement, and life into spaces he had kept closed for years. Despite the tension, moments of connection began to form. They worked side by side during long days, sharing tasks without many words. Sometimes they laughed over small mistakes or shared a quiet look when a job was done well. These moments felt natural, unplanned, and real. The cowboy found himself watching her more than he intended, noticing her strength, her patience, and her refusal to give up when work was hard. He also began to see his own rigidity more clearly. He noticed how often he resisted change, even when it caused no harm. The woman did not try to control the ranch or his life. She simply existed fully within it, refusing to shrink. This challenged him in ways he had never faced before. Others in the nearby area noticed the change as well. When they visited town together, people whispered and stared. She did not fit their expectations either. She spoke freely, walked confidently, and did not lower her gaze. Some admired her, others judged her. The cowboy felt protective, though he was not sure why. He began to realize that strength came in many forms, not all of them quiet. One evening, after a long day, they sat outside watching the sky change colors. For a while, neither spoke. Then she shared a story from her past, one that revealed loss, resilience, and hard choices. Her voice was steady, but the weight of her experience was clear. The cowboy listened deeply, feeling something shift inside him. He understood then that her wildness was not chaos but survival. In that moment, he saw that the life he had imagined was too small for the truth standing beside him. He did not yet know how to change or what the future held, but he understood one thing clearly. This woman was not a mistake. She was a challenge, yes, but also an invitation to grow, to learn, and to see the world beyond his carefully built walls. As the stars appeared above them, the cowboy realized that his simple plan had already fallen apart. And strangely, he was no longer sure he wanted it back the way it was. Life on the ranch began to test both of them in deeper ways as time moved forward. What once felt like small differences slowly grew into moments that required real understanding and patience. The cowboy had always believed that hard work solved most problems. Fix the fence, feed the animals, prepare for the weather, and everything would stay in balance. But now, he was learning that people were not like land or tools. They carried feelings, memories, and needs that could not be repaired with silence. The woman continued to work hard every day. She did not avoid difficult tasks or complain about the long hours. She learned quickly and showed respect for the land, even if she approached things differently. Still, her way of doing things often challenged the cowboy's habits. She suggested better ways to store supplies, questioned why some routines were done simply because they always had been, and spoke openly when she felt something could improve. None of this came from disrespect, but it felt like pressure to the cowboy. At times, he pulled away emotionally. He became quieter, more distant, hoping that space would restore the balance he was used to. But the woman noticed. She had learned long ago that silence could hide problems instead of solving them. One evening, after a long and tiring day, she confronted him gently. She told him she felt like she was walking on uncertain ground, never knowing what thoughts he kept locked away. The cowboy struggled to respond. Speaking about emotions felt like stepping into unknown territory. After a long pause, he admitted that he was afraid of losing control of the life he had built, afraid of change, and afraid of failing at something that mattered. Saying these words felt uncomfortable but also strangely relieving. It was the first time he had allowed himself to be that honest. The woman listened carefully. She did not interrupt or judge. When he finished, she explained that her independence did not mean she wanted to take over his life. It meant she wanted to stand beside him, not behind him. She said that real partnership required space for both people to grow, even when growth felt difficult. Her words were calm but strong, filled with understanding shaped by experience. Outside forces soon tested them even more. A harsh season brought unexpected challenges. Supplies became harder to get, and the land demanded more effort than usual. Long days turned into exhausting nights. Stress filled the air, and small misunderstandings became sharper under pressure. At times, frustration nearly pulled them apart. One particularly difficult week pushed them to their limits. A problem with the animals required constant attention, and both were physically worn down. Tempers flared, and harsh words were spoken without meaning. That night, the cowboy felt deep regret. He realized how easily fear had turned into anger. He wondered if he was truly capable of change. The next morning, before work began, he apologized. The words were simple, but they carried sincerity. The woman accepted his apology, not because it was easy, but because she saw effort behind it. She shared that she, too, struggled with trusting stability after a life shaped by uncertainty. She admitted that she sometimes pushed too hard, afraid that standing still meant losing herself. Working together that day felt different. There was more listening, more patience. They adjusted their approach, helping each other instead of competing silently. The work remained hard, but the weight felt lighter when shared. In those moments, the cowboy began to understand that strength did not mean standing alone. It meant allowing someone else to share the burden. As weeks passed, small changes appeared. The cowboy became more open, asking her opinions instead of assuming his way was the only way. He found that her ideas often improved daily life. The woman, in turn, learned to slow down, respecting the rhythms of the land and the cowboy's need for quiet reflection. They were no longer trying to change each other, but learning how to adapt together. People in the surrounding area noticed the shift. The ranch felt different, more alive. Laughter appeared more often and the home felt warmer. Though judgment still existed, it mattered less. The cowboy no longer felt embarrassed by her strength. Instead, he felt proud of the courage she carried. He realized that her presence had not weakened him. It had expanded him. One evening, during a calm moment after dinner, the cowboy spoke about his past. He shared stories he had never told anyone, moments of loss and responsibility that had shaped his silence. The woman listened with care, recognizing the weight he had carried alone for so long. That night marked a turning point. Trust deepened, not through grand gestures but through honesty. Through conflict and shared effort, both were changing. The cowboy was learning that order could exist alongside flexibility. The woman was learning that commitment did not mean losing freedom. Together, they were building something real, something not based on expectation, but on respect. They still faced challenges, and the future remained uncertain. But now, uncertainty no longer felt like a threat. It felt like a shared path forward. What once began as a practical decision had become a journey of growth neither of them could have imagined. Time passed quietly, but not without meaning. The seasons changed, and with each change, the cowboy and the woman changed too. What once felt unfamiliar slowly became normal. The ranch, which had once reflected only one man's way of living, now carried the mark of two people building a life together. The land stayed the same, but the feeling around it was different. It no longer felt empty or heavy. It felt lived in. The cowboy noticed this change in small moments. He noticed it when he came home tired and heard movement inside the house instead of silence. He noticed it when meals felt warmer, not because of better food but because of shared presence. He noticed it when decisions were no longer made alone but through quiet talks and shared thought. These things did not weaken him as he once feared. They gave him balance. The woman also felt the difference. For the first time in her life, she was not always preparing to leave. She no longer felt like she had to stay alert or guarded. The steady rhythm of ranch life slowly calmed the restlessness inside her. She still held her strength and independence, but now they rested beside trust. She realized that stability did not mean being trapped. It could mean being supported. They learned how to give each other space without growing distant. Some evenings were spent in conversation, sharing thoughts about the day or plans for the future. Other evenings were quiet, each busy with personal tasks, comfortable in silence. The cowboy no longer feared these moments. He understood now that silence could be peaceful when it was shared. Challenges did not disappear. Life on the ranch remained demanding. Weather shifted without warning. Work remained hard. There were days when both felt tired and unsure. But now, when difficulty arrived, they faced it together. Problems became shared responsibility instead of private burdens. The cowboy stopped believing he had to carry everything alone. The woman stopped believing she had to fight everything by herself. One important moment came when the cowboy realized how deeply his heart had changed. A visitor from town made a careless comment about the woman's strong nature, suggesting she was too much for quiet ranch life. In the past, the cowboy might have stayed silent, uncomfortable with confrontation. But this time, he spoke calmly and firmly. He said she belonged there because she chose to be and because they built that life together. The words surprised even him. Later that night, the woman thanked him, though she did not need defending. He understood that then. He had not spoken to protect her strength, but to honor their partnership. That realization stayed with him. Love, he learned, was not about control or comfort. It was about respect and choice. As the months passed, plans for the future became clearer. They discussed improvements to the ranch, not as tasks, but as shared dreams. The woman brought ideas shaped by creativity and experience. The cowboy brought knowledge shaped by years of living with the land. Together, they found better ways to work, live, and rest. Their differences no longer caused tension. They created balance. The cowboy also noticed how others responded to him differently. He spoke more openly, listened more carefully, and showed more patience. People saw him as someone grounded but also open. He realized that growth had softened him without taking away his strength. In fact, it had made him stronger. The woman found herself changing too. She no longer felt the need to prove herself at every moment. She allowed herself to rest, to trust routine, and to accept care. She still spoke her mind and stood firm when needed, but she no longer felt alone in doing so. The ranch became more than a place to live. It became a place to belong. One evening, as they sat outside watching the sky fade into night, the cowboy spoke quietly about how different his life had become. He admitted that when he first planned for a bride, he had wanted something simple because he was afraid of disruption. He smiled gently and said that the best things in his life had come from what he never planned. The woman smiled too. She told him she had arrived expecting nothing permanent, only another chapter in a long journey. She never imagined that she would choose to stay, not out of need but out of love and respect. Their words were simple, but the meaning behind them was deep. There was no dramatic promise or grand declaration. They did not need one. What they shared was built through time, effort, and honesty. It showed in the way they moved around each other, the way they worked together, and the way they faced the future side by side. The cowboy no longer measured life by order alone. He understood now that growth required change, and that love could be strong without being quiet or small. The woman no longer measured freedom by distance. She understood that choosing to stay could be the greatest form of independence. Together, they created a life that reflected both of them. The ranch stood as it always had, open and steady. But inside it lived a story shaped by trust, patience, and unexpected connection. What began as a simple plan became a life richer than either could have imagined. And in that shared life, they both found something lasting, not because it was easy, but because it was real.